I'm looking at a market, guys, here. Yes, tech is trading heavy, really led down by the chips. But again, that light volume, and you have to wonder how much you can take these moves seriously as we head into NVIDIA on Wednesday.
Okay, yeah, you bring up everything that I want to talk about. Look at this, 25% lower in volume for the S&P 500. NASDAQ Composite down slightly. We're seeing mega cap tech under pressure. But again, we're post-Jackson Hole, so really the highlight of this week is what happens just after 4 o'clock, Katie, on Wednesday the 28th when we hear from NVIDIA and Jensen Huang.
Oh, yeah, big time. And it's interesting to see NVIDIA take a little bit of a bath today, down 2% or so. But, of course, all that event risk coming on Wednesday. You think about what's priced in terms of the one-day move for NVIDIA and then what's priced in for the S&P 500. Some are saying this is as important as a Fed meeting.
Well, speaking of the Fed meeting, even though NVIDIA is probably the biggest event of the week, we also get a lot of economic data, including consumer confidence, which sort of threw us crossways a little bit the last time it came out. Also, durable goods orders today, which came out very strong, although not non-defense ex-air. That was a little weaker than expected. But there's a lot of data, including personal income and spending later in the week.
It's such a good point. And we also have gold at a record. So clearly there's a safe haven bid, whether or not that's earnings related or geopolitics related or economic data related. All right, there you have the closing bells on this Monday. Volume really weak. You have the NASDAQ closing down by about 0.8%, the S&P down 0.3, the Dow Jones up by about 0.1%. We're still settling out, but a kind of mixed day to the meh side, Tim.
Yeah, but it just does go to show what did move higher and what did move lower in the S&P 500. When you do see that more stocks were higher in the S&P, even though we moved lower as an index. 270 stocks did move higher today. 231 stocks, Vonnie, did move lower.
Well, and exactly, if you look at the segmentation of the market, right, there's a lot of red there, but it's essentially a lot of IT and semi stocks, industrials, consumer discretionary, for example. And there are 4 or 5 areas that are higher. Mostly, though, it's energy. It's those energy producers, which we're going to be talking about again a little bit later on. This has been a story of the day. Geopolitical risk, but not just from Hezbollah and Israel, which may become a bigger risk, also from Libya shutting off the taps.
All right, well, you actually brought me to my first gainer today. That is ExxonMobil. Kind of tough to find gainers today that are notable, to be honest. ExxonMobil, among the best performers in the S&P 500. In fact, on a points basis, the best performer, up more than 2%. We did see energy stocks as a whole in the S&P rise as Ukraine said Russia launched drone and missile barrages at cities across the country, targeting energy infrastructure, causing blackouts. Shares of ExxonMobil today higher by more than 2.1%. And taking a look at what happened with Kava today, the shares extending Friday's 20% post-earnings gain. Remember, last week, this was all about the company boosting its year sales outlook. Analysts did, in the wake of that report late Thursday, raise price targets for Kava since the company reported earnings on the 22nd. This according to data compiled by Bloomberg. 10 analysts raised price targets by an average of 23%. Today, that stock moving higher by more than 3%. And I got a micro cap for you all to round out. It's a Rich Tech Robotics, excuse me. It's got a market cap of about $133 million. They make robots to help with food and beverage, food delivery, cleaning, busing, and more. Down more than 70% so far this year, but surging today close to 20%.
All right, it was not difficult to find decliners, so let's get to them now. I want to talk a little bit more about NVIDIA. As I mentioned, not having a great start to the trading week, a very consequential trading week with NVIDIA due to report earnings on Wednesday afternoon, falling about 2.3% today. No real catalyst. Of course, this is a stock that has moved about 155% higher year to date, so maybe some air coming out of the balloon before that event risk. I also wanted to talk about Pinduoduo. PDD Holdings. Shares falling the most since 2022. Of course, this is the owner of Temu, for example, and they warned basically that revenue growth, sales are probably going to slow from here. And it's a similar story to what we're seeing over here in the States, basically that weakening consumer. And then I also did want to highlight Elf Beauty, because this has been one of the standouts in the stock market over the past couple years, but shares falling today, finishing down much lower. As you can see, that's after a Piper Sandler note came out that flagged that there was a slight deceleration in credit card data for this cosmetics company, and you can see shares definitely reflecting that.
Yeah, this like flies against my whole invest in your face thing. Anyway, that's a side note. I'm taking a look at yield. So they did actually manage to creep their way higher just a little bit in the front end to your yields, up by about 2 basis points. The why, though, I'm still trying to figure out, because if it's a safe haven bid like we're seeing in the dollar or with gold, you would have seen yields lower. So I wonder if we're just moving on different things, because that higher dollar, higher gold, that's a safe haven thing, but yields yet still moving a touch higher on that.
Okay, what do you guys think of real estate as a safe haven?
Okay, I'm super risk averse, guys. Like, I'm like gold bars under my bed, like put the soup cans, like have a go pack, that kind of thing.
Might be an inflation hedge depending on how, good of a real estate investor you are.
Okay, what about if you're Josh Kushner and Carly Kloss? There's a story out in the Wall Street Journal today. Katie and I can't stop talking about it because I learned today that she's not a huge fan of mid-century modern.
No, it doesn't
but-
really grab me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, she's one of the few,
You don't
I
like
guess.
mid-century modern? What do you like?
I like
good question.
I like houses that are sort of built out of stone and wood. I don't really like the look of this wave house, which is what Tim is talking about. The Wall Street Journal describes it as iconic, and I guess some people could see it that way.
There
but
it is. It's on the TV right there.
beautiful. I mean, it looks like the Sydney Opera House. That's cool.
Yeah.
It was built in the 50s. But look at that conversation pit. It kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies.
$29.5 million, down from the $49.5 million that it was listed for back in June of 2023. So it sounds like they got a deal.
Yeah.
There aren't many of these mansions that are attractive and cozy. I have to say that one looks attractive and cozy to me. I wouldn't say no.
Vonnie, I'm with you. I wouldn't say no
Right?
either.
Okay, wait, hold on a second.
It's in Malibu.
Katie,
also.
okay, if you don't like the structure, though, like, do you not like Eames chairs? Like, is this a mid-century modern, like, anti-all things, or just the architecture?
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the furniture. My husband and I do compromise because he likes mid-century modern. I like a lot of gold and brass and like heavy jewel tone furniture, that sort of vibe. So, we find our way along. But yeah, not a huge fan of the Eames chair.
Okay.
You have to have a few rooms to
It's-
actually decorate, right? So I don't have that problem yet.
No, it's true, but they're just so comfy. All right, the story that I just absolutely love. Okay, imagine this: like you get an email from your boss, just hey, what do you think of the story? And then your firm gets fined $63,000. Like,
Yes.
what would that be like? So apparently, over in Australia, Australians can legally ignore unreasonable after-hour work calls. So under this new law that just went into effect today, any non-essential business outside of work hours, and the company can be fined $63,000.
But how do you know if it's non-essential until you pick up the call, right?
Absolutely no idea. Guys, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I'm curious to see whether this is actually enforced. For example, I could see workers, I don't know, maybe getting pinged. Maybe it wouldn't be great for your reputation at work if, you have your firm written up for sending you an email at 8 p.m.
Listen to what the Prime Minister said to the Australian Broadcasting Corp, ABC. Just as people don't get paid 24 hours a day, they don't have to work for 24 hours a day. He actually added that he expects the changes to boost productivity. It kind of shows the difference between the way that people think about work in different countries.
I mean, they do things differently in Australia. They are in a different time zone as well, and we all know that the US time zone is the one that counts, so maybe they have to work at odd hours, right?
Maybe that's the problem. Okay, but here's my question with that. If you're not paid on an hourly basis, how do you judge whether or not you are paid to work 24/7? Like if you're paid $1 million, I'm like, dude, pick up your email, whatever. But if you're paid $10 an hour, it's like, no, then you should definitely have a set time. So how do you judge that?
It's a fair point, and it's worth noting that you do have local business groups that have expressed concerns about the new laws. For example, the CEO of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry said that these changes are a, quote, thought bubble, and that the business wasn't actually consulted on them. So there's the other side.
I was telling Alix earlier, if you work for 10 years in Australia, you get a pretty mandatory sabbatical of a year.
That sounds
Everybody.
This is great.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong place, guys.
Yeah,
Wrong place.
I know. We really are.
You need to find Bluey
on work
somewhere else.
islands at the
Yes,
email
work
factory. Anyway.
Yeah, the land of Bluey. Maybe that's why it takes so long to get new seasons of Bluey.
Is that it? You
Yeah.
guys don't know what we're talking about, but Bluey is like an amazing cartoon for kids that's good for kids and
Yeah, I was
parents.
lost.
And you should go ahead and watch it on your own because it's awesome.
Yeah,
But
you-
go